Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. Welcome to Nosh and BevNet's Community Call. It's an ongoing series of conversations to discuss all of the challenges that packaged food and beverage brands face every single day. We are sharing advice from the experts. Today, our experts are Anouck Gotlib and Tracy Motz from Belgian Boys. And we are here to talk to them, find out what their tips and tricks are for the very best Expo West exhibit. And we invite you all to join the conversation. So thank you all so much for calling in. And we'd really like you to be part of our conversation here. So if you'd like to ask a question and actively participate in the conversation, all you have to do is go down to the reactions button and raise your hand, and we will call on you. And if you'd like us to answer your question offline, you can go ahead and throw your question in the Q&A. If you would like to watch this show afterwards, or if you know someone who wasn't able to join and would like to watch it afterwards, they can go to BevNET.com/video. And if you would like to take a look at the upcoming calls, you can go to BevNET.com/calendar. So thank you so much for joining us. Let's get started. Anouck and Tracy, welcome to our community call. We want to pick your brain on Belgian Boys' secret to success for Expo West shows. And we thank you so much for joining us and for sharing your family secrets.
Yeah, our first one was back in 2016. We missed a couple with the pandemic, and this will be our sixth one.
So clearly you guys know what you're talking about, but you also remember what it's been like to be a bootstrap brand and, trying to pull off an Expo West show at the early stages when cash is really at a premium. So, I think $30,000 is the bare minimum that folks might be able to spend on an Expo West exhibit. And even that's sort of stretching it a little bit. So clearly, when you have a show like this, you want to make the most of your money. How do you promote your exhibit? How do you get all of the buyers, investors, influencers to know where you are and what you're doing?
Yeah, I can jump in on that one, Melissa. So I think we just make use of all of our available channels. We treat it as if it's any other product campaign. If we were launching a product, how would we tell people about it? It's that important to the business. So we use our email list, we use our social channels, we use our LinkedIn network, of course. We're now really lucky to be at the stage where we do have a lot of inbound asks. So people are coming to us to see if we're going to be at Expo and if they can stop by the booth. So we are pretty rigorous about maintaining meeting schedules and putting together a calendar that makes sense for the whole team. But a little trick that is just another added reminder is that we have our entire team, whether they're attending or not, put a banner in their email signature. So for a period of 2 to 3 weeks before the show, every single email that goes out from the company has a reminder that we'll be at Expo, we'll be at the booth. People can stop by even if they don't have a meeting or an appointment to see us.
That's so smart, and it's so free.
It's so free.
I would also say on LinkedIn, there's a lot of people that are going to start to talk about Expo, like this call, right? I would say engage with those posts, say, we're going to be at booth, whatever, would love to meet you there, because then your name, your brand pops up, you know how LinkedIn works, and just engage, show that you're active, you will pop up on buyers' feeds, etc. So just put yourself out there, I would say.
Can you talk a little bit about building hype? That's another thing that you guys do so well. I know that you recently launched your pancake cereal. How do launches like that and innovation like that play into building hype for a show like this? And how do you time them to make the most of it?
So the timing is not an accident. And I know not every brand can kind of line up their big news so that it feeds so beautifully into Expo. But we've had we've been really lucky both of these 2 years to have a product launch in February, and then it leads right into Expo. So we have this moment where we're super visible. We have this great new product that people are eager to try. We've blasted out on all of our channels. We've run social campaigns and influencer campaigns about this product, and it feeds right into why people want to come to see. We've really given them a reason. We have this year's pancake cereal, and it's only at a limited number of Target stores. And I think there's been so much FOMO around this that people are chomping at the bit. Our customer service email is full of people asking, where can I get it? Where can I find it? Where can I see it? Can I order it from you direct? We had one person ask if we could just send them a case and they could pay us over Venmo. So things, being able to do something big that makes people really curious to come see your brand right before Expo has really served us.
And I want to jump in here, say that right before Expo is not the 2 days before Expo. Like 2 days before Expo, there's going to be so much news. Everyone's going to launch something new. Everyone's going to want to get the attention. You're going to get lost in the crowds. Like this is starting Feb, like first, in my opinion, is leading up to Expo. And most people use the real estate of the first week of March. But you need to build hype, and it doesn't happen in the 8 first days of March before Expo. So just put it out there. Don't be secretive about your innovation, because the more you put it out there, the more you speak, the more you can amplify it in the days and weeks leading up to Expo.
That's exactly right. I know I speak for our editorial team when I say that the number of press releases that they receive the 5 days before the show starts is incredible. And to be able to sift through all of those and make the most of them is really difficult. So would you say that, 3 weeks before the show, that's when you really want to start leaning in on PR and making the most of your news, so you're not competing and kind of, conflicting with all of the noise that's out there?
For sure. Drop it today. Drop it tomorrow. Don't wait.
Okay, excellent advice. Let's move on to another burning question that I think I've heard from every brand that I've spoken with lately, and that's inventory planning. How do you plan on how much product to bring with you to sample? It's an expensive process to ship it, to store it, and then of course there's the cost of the product itself. How do you figure those numbers?
So it's an imperfect science. We're not going to unfortunately hand you some magic formula that's going to let everybody plug in a number. But we learned from trial and error, from going, as Anouck mentioned, 6 years in a row. So we've been able to kind of look at how much we used in the past. And I guess the gift that we would pass on to everybody here today is that in Hall E, you can expect to give away somewhere between 4,000 to 5,000 samples, depending on your placement, depending on the size of your sample. Obviously a lot of things go into that number, but that's kind of where we've landed. But we're also bringing other things along that by no means are logistically easy to get there, but are really important. So hidden innovations that live in our refrigerator that we want to show to just a small number of buyers, limited time packaging that might be arriving. So we have kind of our main sampling item, but then we're bringing a lot of other things in smaller quantities to make sure that if we hit the right person for it, we have it on hand.
Yeah, and I would also say, you're already spending so much money on this Expo West, right? Product cost, that's not where the big money lies, in my opinion. Better have more than too little, right? Just everyone's a consumer. At the end of the show, either you give it to people that live local, so you're in their household, and if not, you do something good and it goes to a food bank, it goes to a donation, and that's some good as well. But you don't want to be there on, after day one and say, oh, we're out of samples, because the logistics, if you are out of samples, are harder than the logistics of before. Shipping a few more cases on your pallet that's already going there is easier than then calling the office. What store has it? Oh, they don't have enough. I need to go drive, get. Don't just ship a bit more.
Anouck, you commented that one of the things that Belgian Boys does and has done is to make sure you know which retailers are close to the show, make sure they have inventory of the product you're going to be sampling. And you say you even call the store and make sure that they know you're coming and you may be needing to raid the shelves.
Listen, you never know, right? Like we live in a world where supply chain, trucks break down, knock on wood, everything goes well and you have your samples. If you don't sample and your pallet doesn't arrive, don't freak out. It happened to everybody. It will be one of those stories that one day you will laugh about, okay? Don't freak out. But yes, you can proactively prepare yourself for that, right? If you have local distribution in California, make sure you already know in advance which stores close to the exhibit have your product. If they have it, call them up saying, hey, there's a big convention, a big event, you should order a few more cases. So you make sure there's safety stocks in those stores as well. Another tip I would say is, yes, we shipped a pallet to the warehouse, but we've also shipped cases of products to the hotel, like UPS. Backup, just in case, you never know. And worst case, you just give it to people working at the hotel and spread the mission about your brand. So just have like some backup plans in case something doesn't arrive, hoping you don't have to activate that plan. But if you do, you will be very, very grateful that you thought about it in advance.
And that's great. And Anouck, in terms of shipping logistics, I'm sorry, Tracy?
Oh, I was just going to say something that we've also learned to piggyback on what Anouck just said. Those extra samples arriving at the hotel, along with swag or whatever else you have there, you're going to need to call in a favor from your hotel. Absolutely guaranteed. Like, have things that make people smile because you're going to need to give stuff away and ask for a favor.
Tracy, do you remember last year at what happened at dinner? With Liam, where we found Liam. Last year we were
we got to hear about this.
We were at dinner before, like the night before Expo, and we were like, who's gonna cook the samples? Yeah, we're gonna change, but I don't know. And we were having dinner and we're like, what are you doing tomorrow? Do you want to join us for Expo?
To our server.
To our server. And so Liam from our sushi restaurant at the hotel joined us, and he's joining us this year again. So
coming back.
There were like samples on the floor of the table, and he was like, what is that? We're like, well, we could use the extra hand. So
yeah, exactly. And honestly, when we were like, should we ask him? It sounded so ridiculous. But honestly, Expo, just ask. Just do the thing that seems ridiculous if you have a problem to be solved, because it can all be solutioned out at the last minute.
Sometimes the most ridiculous things turn out to be the most effective and fun. Sort of based, kind of hinging off of that, who do you use for sampling? Have you ever used an outsourced sampling agency, or have you always kept it in-house, or, finding someone at a restaurant?
We've always kept it in-house. And just last year, we found someone at a restaurant.
Liam is our new sampling outsourced agency. Liam and friends this year.
Excellent. Anouck, you were talking a little bit about shipping. And Tracy, I know you have some thoughts on this too. Are there any sort of hot tips or an inside scoop on maybe the most cost-effective way to get all of your product to the show?
Well, the most cost-effective is to get it in early, and Tracy has the dates, right?
Yeah. So there's some details here, and to call out, we have grown to the point where now we are using an agency to help us with our booth setup, to help us with all the logistics. Don't anybody feel bad if you don't have an agency. It was a lot of years of gluing things together ourselves and being there until midnight. So we are super fortunate to be working with the team at Good Time Creative this year. Marissa Honer and her team are like unbelievable. We feel really aligned with them. So they gave us the down and dirty on shipping. So there's advanced shipping and there's direct shipping. And depending on the hall, you might not be able to direct ship to the show. So if you're in the North Hall, you can't direct ship unless you are shipping frozen or cold product. Then you always have to direct ship. So if you have a choice, advanced shipping is best, but you might not have a choice. If you're shipping cold or frozen, has to go to direct. And if you're in the North Hall with ambient product, you also have to go direct. Or excuse me, you cannot go direct. You have to go advanced. So just work with your rep if this all sounds confusing and you're not sure which one you fall into and you haven't figured it out yet, because it will depend on the type of product you have and whether it's cold or ambient and where you are specifically in the show.
And basically you will get charged. It's called material handling. For those who, this is your first Expo West, you think you're going to pay only for the booth, but then you get a bill for material handling. What is material handling? That is every pound that gets shipped into Expo West, either advanced warehouse or direct to show. You need to pay for them to receive that and bring it to your booth, right? If you ship it to the warehouse, it's cheaper than if you ship it direct to the show. So if you still have time, based on what hall you're at, ship it to the warehouse that needs to arrive at that warehouse before the deadline. So that's a little hack that we've learned over the years.
And if you're at your booth and you're missing your product, is your best bet to contact your show rep?
Yes. You contact, you go ask nicely, you say, I'm here, I want to set up. I think my palette's right over there, all the way in the back, but would really appreciate if you bring it up. And hopefully if you ask with a smile, then they'll expedite.
It sounds like another opportunity to offer something nice to somebody who can help you. That's all great advice. Thanks for sharing that. I do want to let everybody know, if you have any questions at all, or if you have any insight or advice of your own that you'd like to add to the conversation, you can go ahead and go down to reactions and raise your hand if you'd like to join the conversation. And if you'd like to submit a question for us to answer with you offline, you can throw it in the Q&A. So thanks so much, everybody, for joining us. If you're just joining us, we have Anouck and Tracy of Belgian Boys sharing their tips and tricks for the very best Expo West exhibit. So now I'd like to ask you a little bit about swag. This is something, you guys do everything well. The swag is just off the charts with Belgian Boys. I think that I still have a little pink pouch that you guys had to, keep my phone wires in, that kind of thing. How do you think about what will make the best swag to give out at the show? And how do you scale that according to budget, understanding that what you're going to be able to be capable of as a bootstrap brand may change, as you sort of grow as a brand?
I can take that. I think, when we started, I think the first trade shows we did, the traditional pens and stickers, right? Then we went into tote bags and you spend already on swag, but then it's about asking those questions. What are the things that are going to stay in people's households so that they're going to be reminded about your brand as consumer? You sharing that you still have that pouch is probably from before COVID. So 5 years ago. That's the ROI on that pouch instead of the pen that you will probably have lost, right? Last year we did these amazing French toast purses. Yep. People came and said, where is that purse, right? I get pictures still today from people from the industry with their kids and the purses. We are in our consumers' households. And that's how Belgian Boys view swag, different than, okay, one tote out of the, I don't know, I want to say 15, but it's 100 of brands that do tote bags, right? You always think, I want to have the largest tote bag so people see your brand. And that's a strategy. That's something we've done in the past. But people have so many totes. People that go to Expo by now, in my opinion, get more creative. Think about it. Who's your consumer? Who is your audience? And what's something that relates to your brand that you think your consumer would keep in their house for a long period of time and be reminded of, oh, I need to go stock up on that brand.
Our very own Ray Latif mentioned that his daughter still has that French toast purse that you mentioned. So clearly you're doing something right. So when you're thinking about what kind of swag to make, are you thinking, what would I hold on to? What question do you have for yourselves in your mind to make something that really lasts long and stays with the consumer?
I think a lot of times we're thinking, who is the consumer going to take this back to? How can we make sure it stays? The French toast purses, as you said, Melissa, were super, super popular amongst parents asking for them for their kids. So we knew it had a broad appeal between kids and adults. So we kind of hit the entire age range there. The other thing I'll say is that swag doesn't have to be, you can do something really big on a smaller budget if you plan it out in advance. I think putting it out to your entire team instead of saying, okay, this is one person's job to think of the swag, and crowdsourcing. We have a particularly gifted member of our team, Anouck's husband, Greg, who is really, really good at coming up with really fun, zany ideas for swag. And he also is very adept at navigating the corners of the internet and finds places to have them sourced in China and elsewhere. So as long as we're giving enough lead time to have those shipped in, it's made quite reasonably. But what's going to stand out? What's going to be different? What is going to make somebody from across the hall say, oh, I have to go get that XYZ from Belgian Boys. I have to make a special trip to their booth for it. And that's kind of the litmus test we put our swag to.
And think about it as a way of, if they get to the booth and we say there is no more, what would make them actually disappointed that they didn't get? And then you have something good.
That's a great way.
We had a few angry customers last year.
One or two just builds buzz for the next year.
Yeah.
You mentioned sort of, crowdsourcing ideas from your whole team. And something that you both have mentioned is that you crowdsource what your list of goals for the show is, because depending on what your function is at the brand, that'll change what the goals of the show are. Can you talk a little bit about that and what your goals for this Expo West will be?
For sure. I think when you're at a trade show, Expo West particularly, you get overwhelmed, and you, in the earlier years, I remember us asking, with Robin, we're like, okay, this was a great show, right? Was it a good show? Was it yeah, it feels like it was a good show. We had a lot of people coming, lots of buyers, but was it really a good show? So what we've done last year, and I thought was super successful, and we'll do again this year, is actually sit down as a team and say, what does success mean to you for Expo West, right? Because success to Tracy is not success to me. We have a different objective for Expo West, right? If you're a head of marketing, or if you're a VP of sales, or you're a CEO, whatever, you have different wants of the show. So for one, it may be if you're focused on innovation, I want to take the time to actually walk all the show and see every single booth at the show. That may be on the top of your list, as this would mean successful, because if not, if you don't say it, you'll be like, oh my God, I was so crazy at the booth, I didn't even have a time to walk the show and see what else was there. So if you say in advance to your team, success to me means walking the whole show, then the team can be mindful of that and say, you go do you now. For marketing, maybe meeting other brands. For social media, I wanna plan 5 giveaways with other brands. I wanna meet investors. Don't say I wanna meet investors. Who do you wanna meet? Write it down and get a strategy of how you're going to meet them. Buyers, say which buyer you want to meet. At least write it down, because at the end of the show, you can say, out of the 5 retailers I wanted to see, you know what? I only saw one. Wasn't really successful, right? Up to my strategy of what I wanted to achieve at this show. I think it's super, super beneficial.
I think you just brought up another burning question that many brands have.
Success means.
In terms of buyers. So, at this point, Belgian Boys, I'm sure, certainly has a number of meetings set up, and I'm sure that you have sort of a direct line of communication to a lot of the buyers that you'd like to see. But what's your advice for emerging brands who are trying to attract buyers to their booths? Maybe they don't have a broker yet. Maybe they don't have a direct line of communication. What's your recommendation? If they have that list of 5 buyers they want to get in touch with, how do you track them down if they don't stop at your booth?
literally track them down. Or like be in the aisles, watch the booths, like see, I want to do like don't be like spooky or something, but
I'll give a nod to our head of sales, Robin, who she works so creatively within her function. And this is something where I think you start early. If you know there are buyers who you don't have a direct contact with already, start early and get creative. One of our favorite ever Robin stories is she was trying to get a buyer to call her. So she purchased a phone and shipped it to the buyer with a note that said, "Call me" on it. Like, and it worked. The buyer called her and, they established a relationship. So to plan it out ahead, know that this is your day where you're going to, it's like pretend like you already have an in-person meeting. You just have to like get the attention to make sure they show up to it and do whatever you need to do to make that happen.
That's great advice.
Really, you gotta
do whatever you have to do, right?
Yeah, stand out with your boots, stand out with the way you sample, stand out with how you're dressed. Don't, you need to be like a showstopper. People want to walk by your booth, if they're having a conversation, like two people when they walk in the aisle, you want them to go like turn their head and actually look at you. So that's up to you to make sure that they turn their head and they look at your booth and they look at how you show up.
And how do your show goals for a show like Expo West vary from, say, a tabletop distributor show like a KeHE or UNFI shows where people are actually taking orders? How do the goals differ between those two different kinds of shows?
I think Expo West is a show where you need to go with the understanding, in my opinion, that everyone is a consumer. If you think about it, thousands of people are there. They all love CPG and they all love the brands that are displayed there. They're all potential consumers of your brand as well. So go with that mindset. With buyers, I think it's more of where we found success, I want to say, is buyer we saw 1 year of the big retailers, then they see you a second year, third year, like, oh, your brand is still alive. Okay, come, let's talk. Let's have a conversation. Let's have a meeting about bringing your brand in. Don't go there and expect that you're going to get POs and selling relationships immediately. Oh, I love the pancakes there.
I know, I just saw that too. That was great.
that was so cool, Jonathan. Thanks.
I love it.
I love it.
We're glad you did.
So everybody turns their camera on and shows Belgian Boys in their fridge or French toast purses. That would be awesome. But yeah, that would be. Now I forgot what I was saying.
No, that's fantastic. I know we're getting close to the end of the call here. I do want to remind folks, if you do want to throw in a question or two before we wrap up here, you can go ahead and throw it in the Q&A or raise your hand down where the reactions are below. I do want to ask you both. We were talking about a few housekeeping tips and tricks that I thought were so fantastic. This is the kind of stuff that you really realize over the course of a few Expo Wests. Talk to me about rugs and trash baskets, please.
Okay, so it's like carpet, right? You can order the carpet from Expo West and have the same carpet, maybe in another color than everybody else, and you will pay a lot of money for that carpet. Or you can just go to a retailer, Target, Walmart, whatever, buy carpet that stands out and put it in your booth. It's going to cost you like the same, if not cheaper, but it's going to look, oh, that's different. Like they have bright pink carpet, right? So that's one tip. You also want the carpet because you need to be comfortable. You're going to be standing all day, which leads me to shoes, comfy shoes, very, very comfy shoes, because you're going to be standing or walking all day. Trash cans. Tracy, you had a
trash cans. Yes. Do not put a trash can for consumer use in your booth. have one in the back or tucked away for your employees, but there are trash cans that the show provides that consumers can easily find their way to. I think you can rent them from the show. It's costly. And then you also keep having to take out the garbage. You do not need a consumer-facing trash can in your booth.
I see a question from Jonathan. This is a great question. With the number of SKUs that a brand like Belgian Boys has, how do you choose what to highlight? Since for this show, your pancake cereal is certainly a highlight and has been such a big part of the hype. How do you go about that?
Yeah,
go ahead.
So I think this is one that kind of differs as you move along in your brand journey. Like when we started, it was all coming along. It was all coming along because we needed people to understand who we were and what we had to offer and how we were positioning ourselves. And as we've grown as a brand, as we've grown our brand awareness, we've had the luxury of being able to now use our booth to really curate a story. So this year, our focus is on pancake cereal because our story is we are an innovative brand. We follow trends. We can do these big, bold things. And even if you don't want to take in pancake cereal, let's talk about ideas. Let's talk about ways to work together. If you're a buyer, for consumers, like what a delight. We've taken this TikTok trend and brought it to store shelves. So we're very, very focused with a message, but it's because as a brand, we're at a different stage. If you're an emerging brand, you may still need to bring most of your SKUs, but I think Anouck, you had some good tips on what not to bring.
I think it's more about what not to sample, right? Like think about it when you go to a buyer's meeting and if you show, I don't know, 5 flavors of your product, you definitely already know the 2 or the 3 you want them to take because those are your best sellers, right? I would say sample those because those would be the ones you would be happy to have on a PO versus the other 2. So you can show the 5 items, but maybe you decide to only sample the best sellers and put the other ones like, oh, if someone asks to try. You want to make sure that if they try one product, again, and you hand them in the aisle, they turn their head and they be like, oh my God, this is the best thing I've had in the last, of today at the show. Don't give them something that is not your best product because that will most likely ruin your shot, in my opinion.
Anouck, you said something that I think makes so much sense. Don't sample what you don't want to sell.
Yeah, it seems obvious, but I mean, I know I've sampled a lot of stuff early on that I was just like, why did they take that? Well, because you sampled it, obviously, right?
And they're all your babies, it's hard sometimes to pick your favorite child, but sometimes you have to do that or the right child for the right moment. I see a question from Jeff. This is a great question. In something, your innovation is something that we've been talking about throughout this entire call. Are you ever concerned that someone's going to steal your innovation at a show like this?
I think innovation, there's a lot of company have secrecy around innovation, right? The way I see it is you have the best target audience at Expo West. It's like the Super Bowl of specialty food, right? You have the key decision makers, influencers, like industry leaders at that show. You need to ask for their opinion because your product as it is right now, even if it's in innovation stage, it probably can be improved. Ask for feedback, improve it yourself. Don't be afraid of copycat because if you're afraid of copycat and you don't ask for advice, then you might launch a product that is not 10,000% just because you didn't ask, how do I make it even better? I've got so much great feedback by showing stuff that was, 2-3 years ahead of launching under the table to some buyer saying, what do you think of that? Oh, I would make it bigger. I would make it smaller. Have you thought about putting it in a box versus a flow pack? Ask to people that you trust for their opinion.
That's great information. And I think we have time for one last question from Nicole. Do you use lead scanners at the show? Is that part of your strategy? And what does your follow-up post-show look like?
Yeah, we do use lead scanners, and we've charged a couple people usually with like we use it on our own phones, so it's a little more DIY than if you get the scanners from the show. But at the end, we take the big Excel download and we turn it into a Google Sheet, and everybody goes in and assigns who they're going to follow up with. We kind of trickle off anybody who maybe wasn't a relevant lead at the moment. And then we all have a really actionable to-do list after the show. And sometimes you forget even that you met a person or that this person came through your booth. And especially, if anyone on this call is going for the first year, you'll see it's a madhouse. It gets really, really crazy. So you may not have the time to have a conversation with everybody coming through. So it's a really great tool to be able to say, let me just scan quickly before they walk out of the booth, and then we'll follow up later on.
Fantastic. Well, I think that wraps up the majority of the show. I just want to close with one last question for the two of you. If you had to sort of boil down your advice for brands exhibiting at Expo West, what's your top, 2 or 3 pieces of advice that folks should keep in mind for a great show?
That's a really good question.
Or one. We could just go with one.
I think have fun. Honestly, it seems stupid, but you always go with like the pressure of this and that and that. But there's something about the effortless approach, right? And you put so much effort into planning the show. When you're actually there, be present in the moment so that you can actually see what's happening around you. Like you can notice a buyer just there, or being at a CPG, like a mixer or a networking event. Most of them are free attendance. Go there, and you never know who's next to you at the bar, and just say, hey, how was your day, right? And it's like, it might be the buyer that you wish you would meet. So I would just say, be present and see what's around. Another piece of advice I would say, actually, this is for everybody, bring mints, have mints at your booth. Favor to you and favor to everybody around you, because you're gonna have so much conversations. Make it pleasant one. Like people eat all sort of things at that show. You want to have a conversation that's pleasant.
That's advice from a seasoned exhibitor for sure.
Means.
Yeah, mine would be, if you are going as a team or as a group, go dress as a squad. The more visible you are, the better. And if people are turning their heads to see this group of 4 or 5 people walking through, you're a moving billboard. Like, don't forget that. And I think it plays into what Anouck said, like, you want to be talking to as many people as you can, because you never know what can happen from that. It could be a partnership, it could be an investor, it could be a new retailer. So whatever you need to do to bring visibility, like that is one of our favorite things, is figuring out the outfits. We just had the outfit call earlier today. Even if you're going just as one person, wear something wild so that people are not going to forget you.
Think about it, it's California, right? It's not like a white shirt and suit. People are chill, relaxed. They want to go and have a good time. Last year, people were calling us the pink ladies. Pink ladies, come here. And we were like all walking there. It was like super funny. But yeah, dress to remember. And speaking of team, you're there with all your team. This is like team building, people, enjoy. These are memories you're going to remember all the time, like building pallets, schlepping stuff in, schlepping stuff out without people seeing that you have the 4-wheeler, all these things. These are like memories. So yeah.
Great advice. I just can't thank the two of you enough. Would you please remind everybody what booth number Belgian Boys is exhibiting at this year?
Yes, we are at 5383. I wrote it down so to be sure we didn't mess it up. 5383. That is in Hall E. We're on a corner, so easy to find, and just look for the glow of pink.
Excellent. And if folks want to get in touch with either one of you, would LinkedIn be the best place to do that?
Perfect.
Yes. Anouck Gotlib and Tracy Motz, Thank you so much for joining us and sharing the trade secrets that have made you best-in-class exhibitors. Thank you so much. We appreciate it. And for everybody else, thank you so much for joining our community call today. We will make a taped recording of this available for you at BevNET.com/video. These will be coming fast and furious. We will have another show next Thursday at 2 p.m. EST with our BevNET and NOSH editorial teams, so you can understand how to pitch for coverage successfully with that team. And then the week after that, we will have Ali Olivier and Roger Perrette, formerly Whole Foods Market grocery buyers and UNFI, to talk about how to perfect your retail pitch and follow up after a show like UNFI. So thank you all so much for tuning in today. And if you have any questions or if you have a show idea that you think might work for this, please send me an email at mtravers@BevNET.com. Thank you so much.